Hello and welcome to this interview that I have the honor to have with Dr. Bessel van der Kolk in my function of CEO and founder of Healthy Sense of Self, but more specifically as the author of my upcoming book, How to Overcome Insomnia All by Yourself, a Healthy Sense of Self guide to getting a good night's sleep. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk is an MD and a professor of psychiatry at Boston University School of Medicine, director of the National Complex Trauma Research Network, and the medical director of what has recently changed to be named the Trauma Research Foundation in Massachusetts. He has been helping people for so many years to recover from the most horrific experiences. Traumatized individuals, among which many children that are abused, abandoned, neglected, sexually assaulted, victims of rape or molestation, incest, who witnessed the murders, and especially has a spot in his heart, I think, for veterans of war who oftentimes come home with PTSD. When I found out that we both from the same country, same age, we grew up in the same city, I thought it would be a good idea to try to contact Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and here he is. I'm so grateful. Bessel.
So, I immediately think about, we have very different backgrounds in a way.
Yes.
In that you sort of discover things by yourself. I've always been part of a flow of human beings who together discovered stuff about trauma. And so for the past 31 years, for example, I've run a very big conference in Boston where I invite neuroscientists and attachment researchers and people who work with babies and actors and musicians, brain scientists, to really put this field together. So I've always had a lot of company and to jointly develop a language and an understanding, which doesn't come just from me. And so we didn't have to invent new terms, because the terms were sort of came as the field evolved, and I've been very much lucky enough to be at the center of the evolution of this field.
Yeah, so was it that your book came out? Let me first mention this book, The Body Keeps the Score, the Brain, Mind and Body in the Healing of Trauma. A revolutionary book. Everybody loves it. It's like everybody's go-to book right now in so many languages. And I'm glad that you say that, because yes, we come from very different backgrounds. There's also a difference in time, right? Because when I had to find a solution for my problem, 1985, 35 years ago now, first of all, I was a musician, so I was not a psychologist. And then when I go to the doctor and to the psychologist, they were mostly prescribing sleeping pills because, first of all, there's no time to go in depth through everything. And I didn't think that would help me in the long run, because I think that sleeping is a natural ability. And if you can't sleep, then there's something in the way and you have to discover what it is. And that is how I took matters in my own hand and went on a journey of introspection and awareness, and mapped out my thoughts and feelings. I had a recorder. I made recordings and listened back, and I did that for about 25 years.
Wow.
And from that, not only did I get a better night's sleep, but also the sense of self method emerged. And I see in your book so much confirmation of what were hunches for me, also as a non-academically trained person.
But of course, that's how we learn. Huh? We all learn from each other, and we learn from people like you and people like me who have to solve their own issues, and then have the courage and the balls.
Stamina.
Yeah, this applies not only to me but to other people. And a certain overcoming your sense of shame about your inadequacy, and this is all based on people's experiences at the end.
Right, but so far you are the first academic person that I talk to who is open to this way of approach, and even values it and acknowledges it, that every patient, should be just guided to their own creativity, get access to their own creativity, because we are all unique persons and there's not one solution for everybody. And as you pointed out in your book, that traditional psychiatry and psychology, had as a pattern, so to speak, that you diagnose a person, you label them, then you treat them with pharmaceuticals. And if it didn't work, well, it was not the fault of science, that was the person, it was too complex. And there was another thing that was, I think, very counterindicative to this approach, that if you solve one issue with chemicals, there's other stuff in your body that goes out of balance, and then you have to solve that again. And so you get into a continuous mill of that you have to consume pills and potions, whereas you have pointed out that if people are encouraged to get access to their own creativity, they come up with their own solution.
See, here our trajectories are a little different, because while you were studying how to become a very good bassoon player, I was going to medical school.
Yeah.
And at that time, there were no chemicals. And
Okay.
I actually did the first chemical studies on trauma, like the very first studies. And we were very excited about these medications. But I come from a world where there were no medications. And we had to do all kinds of other things. And so being an original investigator into medication, I got not bad, but they are not as good as we hoped they would be. And so I went on beyond medications, and much to my intense sorrow, I saw that psychiatry got hijacked by the pharmaceutical industry, and they stopped being people interested in people's minds, and they became very primitive little pill pushers, which is not really what mind science is about. And so psychiatry lost its way to the point that today I would say that overall psychiatry probably does more harm than good.
And do you think that there's like a specific a world problem, or is it typically for the US?
Oh, I see it around the world.
Yeah.
And see, the other issue that is important is that the term I keep using is the term self-leadership, which I learned from Dick Schwartz. And people are very authority-bound. They always hope that somebody out there has the answer. And it's a terrifying experience to realize that maybe nobody knows more than I do.
I think it's a need of people to still have a father.
Right. And of course, the whole world is filled with people who look for the answer and the ideal. And indeed, what all good therapy ends up with is, what are you discovering? What is your truth? What is your reality? And that's a very hard thing that Dostoevsky talked about already in The Grand Inquisitor, of how scary it is to give up faith in authority and start believing that you're the ultimate authority.
Right, interesting.
People don't want that.
Well, that's to say, I call those people who don't want that, who are unable to do that. They haven't grown up yet. They're toddlers.
Well, I would say the majority of mankind is
Really?
looking for some person who will give them the answer. Huh?
Isn't that what religion is based on, if I can say that?
Much of society.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you're in kind of breaking through that taboo in a way, because I think especially in this coronavirus situation, many people are aware of that they have to get in connection with themselves, because that's what life is all about. And I think so many people are growing to be from a toddler, they are growing up and become an adolescent and try to live without a father, right?
And then you need to discover yourself. You went through a journey also, like everybody else I know. And the journey is not really a fun journey. It's exciting. But you get shipwrecked a good amount of the time. your body is lying on the shore being washed up a good amount of the time. It's a difficult journey to
Yeah, this
discover.
is what I describe in my Insomnia book. I mean, there may be not so many people. If you haven't experienced it firsthand, it's devastating. It kind of isolates you. It makes you half of yourself, and you feel that potential in yourself, but you can't do it. And you know, uh, the the ultimate reason was that I had no connection with myself. I was dependent on what I was doing to feel good about myself.
Right.
And to break through that,
Interesting.
especially in insomnia, that's
Yeah.
a challenge.
Surprisingly common for musicians, actually.
Really.
I'm oftentimes impressed with that. I've treated quite a few people who go to the New England Conservatory, which is just down the street from us,
Ah,
and uh, they try so hard to play the right notes, they lose their love for music, and they lose their love for themselves. And it's just astounded how people can get hijacked by the search for perfection, and their whole body gets verkrampt, to use the good old Afrikaans term, and to get all uptight in order to get that right note out.
yeah. How can you ever sing, right? That's what I just described earlier to you. How these muscles that you want to use, they're just stiff.
I've been watching Isaac Stern the last few days, and
Oh,
it's beautiful. And he just owned his body merges with
yeah,
the instrument.
yeah.
Yo-Yo Ma's body merges with the instrument, and it doesn't like, ooh, let me master it, but to make it a part of yourself, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I love now in my current relationship, who like is a person who plays blues music, and so I listen to that a lot, and I kind of am there when they play, and they're so relaxed, they're having fun. You know, it's a job too, but
But
it's
mutual,
very,
it's very reciprocal. It's very listening to each other,
yeah, and
riffing
they
on each
use their ears, and classical musicians oftentimes don't even know how to use their ears. Well, at least I didn't, because I was too preoccupied, you know.
doing it right. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get it right. And truthfully, if you play a Mahler symphony and you have to put in that one note, and it has to be just right.
That's right. It's true.
So it reinforces, the system reinforces itself, but it's also freeing to take a step back and then, you know, sit at the piano and say, I'll just do something. It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that? Like sit there, just
I'm
play.
not very good at it either. I'm a cellist and a pianist, and I'm
Okay.
still.
I can see that. But anyway, so self-healing and taking matters in your own hands. Is there anything you would like to say to the viewers that how to approach it? I know you have a whole array of suggestions. If you have a severe trauma, you need help to start with. But then what can you do?
Well, my book is called "The Body Keeps the Score," and that's not just because it has a cute title, because you hold it in your body. Yeah? So
Mhm.
the issue is, how do you get a body that feels safe and feels comfortable with itself? And
And lets you
particularly
sleep,
in the age
if I may say that.
of Corona, of course, is a really tricky issue because it really starts off with touch. And a touch starts off with somebody holding you, somebody making you feel calm, making you feel safe. Um, and certainly for me personally, sort of looking at my own trajectory, what for me was probably the most helpful intervention I ever got was being rolfed.
Being
Rolfing,
what?
being rolfed. Rolfing
Oh,
is a
wolfed.
very
Okay.
intense
Yeah.
form of massage. And so I grew up during the Hunger Winter. So I was of a generation of where 200,000 kids died of that generation. It was starvation, starvation after the war, a lot of early things which none of us remembers, but it sits in our bodies. There's a lot of terror in our bodies. And I think I was a very terrified kid.
Hmm.
And I was a terrified kid who lived in a terrified body. And so what I needed more than anything else, I'm so smart and verbal, so all that talking and figuring things out is very nice, but it doesn't change anything. Huh? Knowing why you screwed up doesn't make you less screwed up. Now you know why you screwed up, but that is not the solution. But living in a body that feels safe, a body that's multi-potential, is very important. So I think learning to feel your body, to live in your body. I think yoga, I did some serious research in yoga, incredibly helpful to just get your breath going, get your body, get your flow going. And the mind is sort of an afterthought on top of that big thing that we inhabit.
Right.
And when you're a traumatized person, your body is always uptight. You can't breathe openly. You tighten yourself up, and you're not open to the world.
So how do you get started? Because that was actually the one thing that got me started on my own journey. I discovered that when I couldn't sleep, I would get up at night. And then at some point, I would just sense my marble wall. I just sensed that with my hands. There was a red leather chair that had little bubbles in it. I can still feel it. And so how I soothed myself, I can feel, so I am. So I don't need to be worried about it. That was my start of getting in touch with my body. Because that's the problem. People don't know they're not in touch with the body because it's always been there, right?
No, and people are afraid of their bodies. Because trauma is lived out as, I learned that from Darwin, heartbreaking and gut-wrenching experiences. So you have these feelings in your chest and in your abdomen that are intolerable, and you try to push it away. And instead of pushing it away, you need to welcome them and get to know them. And so you need to befriend them. And so really opening yourself up to yourself and noticing that when you get uptight, if you take a deep breath, you can let it go. Or if you touch that marble wall, it can go. Or if you do some dancing and moving, it can go away. To really learn how you can manage and deal with your internal sensations is at the core of all this stuff. Yeah.
Right. And then you have to learn, that's my experience, that sensation is me. That's me. Because I came about this idea of a healthy sense of myself because I studied and looked at other people and I say, what do they have that I don't have? They seem to be comfortable in their body. They have a healthy sense of themselves. So that's why I have a lack of sense of self. A sense of self, in my opinion, is an abiding sense that you are your own person and that you have the right to live as your own person just because you are. But that's a cerebral approach. So you have to get
physical. You need. I think as Freud said, he said many things wrong, but certainly some things right. He says the body, most of the ego is a body ego, and that you get that body from discovering how your body reacts to the world and how people react to you. And of course, if you grow up with, as many of us Dutch people do, with very judgmental and rigid parents, you feel like, oh, I must be wrong. There must be something wrong with me. So you tighten yourself up to become acceptable to your uptight parents. So you can become just as uptight as they are. And that's very much the legacy of many of us Northern Europeans. But our body ego depends on being seen by other people. So when you write about your partner doing blues with other people, that is how they did it. Yeah. That's how slaves came over from Africa. They came from different parts of Africa. They didn't speak each other's language, but they were all into rhythms because Africa is into drumming, and they communicated through rhythms. And that's the beginning of the blues and the beginnings of African American music, which became the music of the world and the liberating music of the world. Because they learned how to be rhythmically in touch with each other. The body in touch. And when I worked in South Africa, I saw that they dealt with trauma by helping people rhythmically get in touch with each other.
Yeah, I read that section in your book when you were in that ladies were molested, and that they got to start singing, and that they kind of
Moving and dancing, yeah.
moving and dancing, and that is actually sort of that you even like that would be maybe a thing that we can say people need to do. It's a serious matter to heal yourself, but don't forget the fun. Don't forget the rhythm and the dance, because that
Right.
kind of puts you back in your body as well, right? I'm a
You know,
ballroom
it's
dancer,
interesting.
so I
When you look at any psychology book, you have to look in your book if it's yours. Uh, the word fun, the word pleasure is missing from all of those books.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Look at your book to see if you have fun and pleasure in your book. First thing when I got my book,
Yeah.
they look at the index, was pleasure in there. They left pleasure out. So you
Oh,
have if you have the very first edition of my book, pleasure is not in there. I call my publisher, what the hell? You left pleasure
okay.
out. It's a central
Good
word.
point. I'm sure it's not in mine either. But anyway, so I got far, I got a long way, and sitting here with you, that's sort of the crown of my work, I tell you. But a lot has changed also in the meantime. Was it 2014 your book came out?
Yeah.
Yes, I had to
15 years.
solve my issue in 1985. So, and then you said, okay, you were part of the people who invented the pharmaceuticals, and then you say, okay, this goes too far. We need to acknowledge the person in the person before.
I didn't say it goes too far. I said, oh, this doesn't get us where we need to be.
Okay. Right. But now we know a lot more. When I had to find my solution, I thought there must be a change in my brain or something, or I don't see certain things like other people see them. And how can I get in touch with that? So I came up with my image of the brain tree. I
Huh.
imagined my brain to be like a bare tree in winter, like with all the branches. And if you, with a tree, that's easy. If you see that's too crowded in this area and you want to cut off a branch, then you take a saw and done you are, right? But with the brain, it's that's probably not possible. So, but you can do the work virtually, I was thinking. So you can imagine like certain areas overcrowded because of coping mechanisms, survival systems that you have to let go of. So it's just a start. And in my book, in my other book, I let people make their own brain tree, you see.
Uh-huh.
So they can get a sense of what is going on in their brain. But I would like you to talk a little bit about how that approach is now possible with the neuroscience.
Well, the issue of quieting down the monkey brain, which is how the Buddhists talk about it, is a very big issue. How do you get calm? And what we do know is that breathing is absolutely necessary. And of course, there's been a lot of research on mindfulness to learn to observe yourself.
Right.
To observe yourself non-judgmentally. So when the monkeys come up, to say, oh, there's the monkey again. And you say, oh, what the monkey's chattering? Oh, the monkeys are always chattering about the same stuff. And you have to say to the monkeys, hey, I'm meditating right now, and for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to just look at the leaf on the tree over there. Can you sort of keep quiet? So you can train your brain to become focused. And that is really at the core of so many treatments for trauma. We do it with neurofeedback, we do it with EMDR, we do it with psychedelics, is to help the brain to become calm and to become focused. And
Yeah.
that's the challenge, actually, is to prune all those extra thoughts.
But you
And
can
that's why
even
the
like,
field of mindfulness is actually very, very important.
yeah, that is something that people can do for themselves. But if they go into therapy, they can also, the therapist can have access to what happens in their brain because they see lighten up certain areas. That what I compare with my brain tree story, that now is confirmed that yes, there are actual physical changes in your brain. And that's why it's so hard to recover from past traumatic experiences.
Yeah. But so it's hard, but what we also know, yes, we can change. There is such a thing as neuroplasticity, and that new habits are able to frame new brain circuits. But you have to do it. Huh? And as musicians, we know we have to practice. You don't play
Absolutely.
that note heaven sonata unless you practice it over and over again. And you don't develop new habits until you actually meditate and you do your yoga and you do your breathing. And it takes a good amount of effort, actually.
Yeah, I call that reconditioning yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there, with practicing music and reconditioning yourself, yeah, there's absolutely similarities, and both you should not overdo either, right?
Right. But the issue of commitment to a practice
Yeah,
is terribly, terribly important. Very hard also. Huh? But people say, I'm too busy to do yoga. I say, oh, you're not too busy to watch a stupid show on TV. You're
yeah,
not too busy
my idea.
to
Absolutely.
listen to our crazy president, but you're too busy to take care of yourself and spend 20 minutes a day.
Well, I tell you, 20 minutes a day was not enough for me. If you don't sleep, you have no option. You have to just look inside what's going on. And, I think that maybe people who have issues with sleep would be helped with reading my book. And
Yeah,
they would absolutely be reading, help me with reading your book,
you
because
have gone through it, so.
the sleep, what you do at night is caused by what you do during the day, right? How do you
But
look at
the core
insomnia?
issue is that uh, as long as you're afraid of yourself, you keep running away from yourself. And so, what clearly you did is you had gathered the courage to go take care of yourself. And that takes courage. And our natural inclination is, oh, I'm feeling bad. Oh, my wife has to take care of me. Or my
Uh-huh,
mom has to take care of me. Or my therapist has to take care of me.
right.
And that doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
But I hear you say, really, you learn to take care of yourself. Huh?
Well, I say I had no other choice. I either didn't live my life, or I had to take care of it, right? And do we still have time to address the issue of self-sabotage, which I think is majorly important? Because
Well, tell me about it. Yeah.
it's a common word, especially used in the US a lot, not so much in the Netherlands, I found. Um, because self-sabotage, people say, well, I was prepared, but then I screwed up and I sabotaged myself. But why would you actually do that? If you were really in touch with your real self, there wouldn't be no reason why you would destroy your own efforts. So I see self-sabotage as a way of nature to pull you back in and say, look at what you're doing. Are you doing this for the right reason, or do you have a hidden agenda? Are you being a musician because you love music or you have to make money? Or are you doing it to impress people and feel good about yourself? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you see self-sabotage in that light, it helps you getting back on track. And it becomes a positive experience. A painful one, yes. Like insomnia is a form of self-sabotage, because when I did something right and I felt good about myself, I wouldn't sleep.
Mm.
Because then my body says, hey, look at what you're doing. This is not for you. This is to get somebody's approval. It's not even to do it for that person, because you have a selfish goal. You need a person's approval.
Mm.
Can you follow my discourse? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I hear what you say. It's very, well, the concepts you talk about are very familiar to me. I see it all the time. In my world, we don't use the word self-sabotage a lot, but we see a lot of managers and firefighters who rush in to correct things or to mess things up. And what we try to understand is indeed old defensive habits
Yeah,
that at one point were helpful to you that now screw up your life. And so we talk, oh, a part of you is so hyper conscientious. And so, how old is that part? And how did you get to be so worried about whether you play that piece of music perfectly? And what comes up next is, if I didn't work play the bassoon very hard, my dad would not talk to me or somebody, or so you say, so it is a very helpful part back then. And so let's honor that part and for how it has helped you in the past and see if it can sort of step back a little bit to give room for you to not be worried about your dad talking to you.
So you consider that a part? Oh, so I never understood that so well. You see that part
We
more
don't
as
do
this
part.
historical part, right? Not so much
Well,
like,
they're actually parts of the mind that starts organizing itself in a particular way. So you can become a very controlling person, or you can start hurting yourself, or that insomnia part. I would call it a part. A part of you rushes in and says it's not safe to go to sleep.
mm,
And so then we try to figure out what that part is actually trying to do for you. And
yeah,
because all these parts start off with good intentions. Every part of you is geared towards trying to help to keep you alive.
right.
And sometimes it turns out that you find out that cutting yourself helps you to be able to tolerate things. So it's not a bad thing to cut yourself. But if you cut yourself now and you bleed all over the place, you go like, huh, there's an old habit that was helpful back then, but it's not so helpful
Yeah,
now. Starving
absolutely.
yourself. Anorexia is another very good example. Anorexia starts off with, I don't need anybody. I'm going to suppress all feelings in my body. Probably is very helpful at a particular point in your life. If
Yeah,
you become an anorexic, it screws up your life.
right. Yeah.
Yep.
It was lovely to meet you and to talk. I'm very grateful for that. Is there anything that you can add for people, to be their own best healer, if they're inspired to do so?
Read your book, read my book,
That's a good idea.
and
Because you
talk
only
about
have
it.
one life and you make sure that it's yours, right?
It's only life you've got.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's going to save it for you. You know.
That's correct. Um,
Take care.
no, people need to know where they can reach you and find your book.
Um, well, my book is everywhere.
Okay, yes,
If books
Amazon.
are open, you can find it there, Amazon, whatever. um, my website is besselvanderkolk.com or traumaresearchfoundation.org.
Okay, right. Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much,
Good luck to
Dr.
you.
van der Kolk. Okay,
Okay. Thank you. Bye
bye-bye.
bye.